Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you. James Joseph, one of the reasons I wanted to get you on, and I'm just going to kind of jump right in and make it part of the intro, was that you've always fascinated me with your non-marketing approach to marketing. From the outside, and I study business models of law firms, what's made you so amazing at it is you dominated your space, and your only marketing I can see from the outside is that you just are excellent at what you do. Right? You've done it so differently for so long. So not only are you proactive, but your emotionally intelligent approach to the practice of law has just been amazing.
When I started my own practice, I was very good at it, and I think I had the right personality for it. As you and I both know, there's a lot of divorce lawyers that take a very different approach than my firm does. They come in with a very aggressive attitude. I get it. When I was young, both of us have a bit of a fight in us. And certainly I wanted to be the hero and save the day and, would fight like hell for my clients. But the longer I did this, the more I realized that while there are times you need to fight in my area of practice, it always needs to be done with the understanding that these people, particularly if they have children, are going to have lives post-divorce. And the more damage we do during the divorce, the more we're going to hurt them and their children going forward. So I learned that that wasn't the right approach. We don't yell and scream. I never did. No one in my firm does. It's not who we are. There's nothing that rattles us. My mom was an ER nurse in a New York City hospital back in the 60s. And I grew up in a very calm atmosphere where I was taught that there is just nothing is worth losing your cool over, and that you can function a lot better when you're calm. You can make better decisions, you can strategize, you can handle things in a much more productive manner. So I think that personality just, it's who I am. It's the people I've hired, and it led to, a really nice practice, attracted a lot of the right people that we can help, that want to be helped. These are people's lives. The quicker we get this done, as long as we're protecting them, as long as we're making sure that we're getting them a really good outcome under the circumstances, the better off they are. To go through a 3-year divorce when it could have been resolved in a year is really disturbing to me. It's one of the reasons why, and as you know, these days, I don't handle day-to-day anymore. I've stepped back completely from handling cases. And the reason I've done that is we've become very mission-focused. And honestly, you're a large part of this. You've been whispering in my ear and yelling in my ear. Why aren't I bigger? Why aren't we serving more people on Long Island? We have something really special. And coming from you, that means so much to me. And it's had such an impact on me.
I think your greatest marketing is the fact that you're not really selling. You're showing people how you can do it differently, and you are doing it differently. A friend of mine for the last 10 years, Craig Goldenfarb, dig down a little bit for us on, because I know a lot of PI related, personal injury related people will be listening to this, strategies. And I know you have a lot of these for client acquisition and retention. If you had to, again, use the 80-20 rule, where would you put the bulk of your focus as somebody who's 10 years behind or 20 years behind you in terms of client acquisition and retention? Because that retention is marketing to your existing client base, right? You're doing a good job, et cetera. So,
well, the first is making a distinction between the two, which is that client acquisition is a totally separate department, so to speak, or separate strategy as to client retention, because they're two different pools. Client acquisition is new people. I call them new people to your world. Client retention is taking your existing client base or database and then making them fans. And when they become fans, they become referral sources. So one is new, one is old. And if you take everybody knows the Morgan & Morgan example. So Morgan & Morgan doesn't necessarily make all their clients happy and doesn't necessarily get great results in some situations. I'm comfortable saying that because we get a lot of their clients that fire them. So their business model is client acquisition, which is we'll pay the average cost per case for client acquisition because we've got that down to a science. But client retention isn't that important, even though I think it should be. Client retention and making them our fans is less important to us than client acquisition. Now, I think that's a flawed business model. Although they're super successful, I think you can do both. You can focus on client acquisition and then take all those clients that you've got and make them your biggest fans and make them your referral sources. And I get 23% of my clients in 2022 from existing or former clients. Now, that's with a multiple seven-figure marketing budget. I still get 23% of my cases for free.
Right.
Which is
repeat
from
business,
repeat business,
right,
or that clients refer me their friends or relatives.
Right.
I call that almost free. It's not free because we have to have client retention programs and treat our clients great and hire great staff and treat them well. So it's not technically free, but it's a lot cheaper than television and digital and radio and billboards, which I also do. So I guess if we talk about client acquisition first, I would agree that TV and billboards and some of the stuff that I still do are a much higher cost of client acquisition than the newer stuff that I also do. So if I were a baby lawyer or I were 30 years old right now, I would definitely not start with TV or radio or billboards because that is a branding move that has taken me 20, 25 years to establish. And I'm well branded now. So I still do it because I'm very well branded on TV, on billboards, etc. So I'm not going to give it up, but I would not start today with mass media. I absolutely would not start. Your cheapest new cost per case acquisition is digital, 100%. And we're starting to leave our mass media budgets static, meaning I'm not spending more on TV every year. I'm spending about the same or less. My billboards are staying about the same or less. My radio, my bus benches, all the mass media are staying about the same or less. But I'm increasing significantly my digital budget. And the digital budgets, the key to me, since I have no interest in learning anything about this, is that I go to enough seminars to learn who to hire.
Right.
And I think the lawyers who are in their 20s and 30s who grew up with this stuff and are comfortable learning it themselves are still making a mistake by learning it themselves. Because no matter how much time you spend, if you're running a business and practicing law, you don't have enough time to learn it well enough to do it as a full-time job. So when I started to go big on social media, I didn't delve into it and learn Google AdWords. I followed the book Who Not How, which is instead of deciding how do you do this, it's who do you hire to do this? Who Not How. It's a great book. And I said, how much do I pay them and where do I find them? I don't want to learn Google AdWords. I still don't know what Google AdWords are. I still don't know the difference between AdWords and pay-per-click. I still leave the room when someone talks about local searches because I don't care. I just don't care. And I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But what I am smart enough to figure out is that for $70,000, I can hire someone who can do this full-time and get me on the top 3 in the Google Pack, whatever that means. So I say the piece of advice is if the best form of marketing is digital, learn enough to hire. Don't do it yourself. If you are 30 and you're brilliant and you can do it yourself, still don't do it yourself, even if you like it. Because for $70,000, $60,000, you can hire another 23-year-old who can do it full-time and has been doing it full-time since they were 13 and can kill it on Google service ads and Google ad pay-per-click and all this stuff and get you a really low cost per acquisition per case. So digital's the way to go, but don't do it yourself. I really think it's a mistake, even if you're 35 and even if you know social media. I still think it's a mistake for you to do it yourself.
I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. And, again, maybe it's as we cross the 50 threshold, right? 54. When I was younger, starting out 20 plus years ago, you don't put the same value. And what you just said is talking about valuing your time appropriately. And that didn't make sense to me till I probably was in my mid 40s. Right?
I agree.
I was like, I can learn this, but is that the best use of my time versus bringing on a team to do it or, an outside vendor or whatever. So I think there's a lot of wisdom to that approach.
I got a text yesterday from a lawyer I'm pretty close to that said, looking for a new AdWords company and SEO company, who do you guys use? And I still feel a little bit stupid when I give the same response, which is, I don't know, call Mike.
Right.
Mike is my marketing director. I literally run a 8-figure law firm, and I don't know who we use for SEO.
But I think that is the goal. If you would ask Tim Cook who they use for suppliers on certain components for the iPhone, he's probably not going to know.
Yeah.
Right? It's not his job to know. It's not his job.
It's not my job. I feel kind of stupid not knowing who we use for SEO, but I know who to ask if I needed to find out.
Right.
But I don't know. I have no idea. Someone asked me who does your website, and I think I know the answer, but I'm not 100% sure who even builds and maintains our website. So as a type A guy, it's very uncomfortable to not know those things. But when you get to a certain level, if you do know all the details about that, then it's not the best use of your time.
Quick break to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is supported by Tona Law, a modern law firm built on integrity and innovation. Learn how they're changing the game at tonalaw.com. Attorney referrals accepted from across the country. You'll see what it's like when you send us a case. You'll have some happy clients. We have Mark Whitehead. How did you get started with law firm marketing? And what would you say attributed to you becoming such a strong force in marketing in the law space?
Fortunately, I was one of the first people that really started taking the internet seriously back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and realizing that it was the next Yellow Pages. Because you have to think about what's the client experience, what's the client journey look like? You know, the client doesn't buy law, the client doesn't buy lawyers. The client is looking for some guide or guru out there that will solve their problems. So how do people think about that when they realize they have a problem and they need somebody to help me solve the problem? So that's kind of how we started, how we took off. We actually started to think like a client. You know, what does our ideal client look like? You know, you have to know that first. What are you looking for? And then in turn, how does that client think? When that client has a problem, you just gameplay it out. And what are they going to do? Who's the first person they're going to call? Where are they going to look? What are they going to look for? What search terms are they going to look for? So we really game played it out. And I had some smart people that helped me. Some people through Atticus. Atticus actually hooked me up with a now retired internet guru from back in the early 2000s. And we really just sat around and game played it and worked it out in our heads and just started from there reverse engineering it and figuring out how to get the right marketing channel, the right marketing message, you know, the right way to sell to that client. Sales is a dirty word in legal, but it's true. We have to sell ourselves. So how do I sell myself? In other words, how do I convince them to sign on the dotted line? And then how do I provide excellent customer service to that person so that person then refers their friends to me? And it just becomes a big continuous marketing cycle. You market well, you sell yourself well, you do good work, you stay top of mind with your client base, and it just comes right around to the top where they send you more work. And it's like a big flywheel. It just keeps growing and growing and growing.
What would you say are the top 3 marketing needle movers for you that if you could only do 3 things yourself without a team that you have, and let's assume for a second you're looking across $1 million to $3 million, what top 3 things would you focus on in marketing?
Actually, that's pretty easy because I coach other lawyers and I see other lawyers' firms and what's working for them and what's not working. And 3 things consistently are what work across the board for all the firms that I've looked at, including mine. You know, and the first one is, I just loosely call it digital marketing. It's the Yellow Pages of the 21st century. Most people who are looking for a consumer-based lawyer are going to probably be on the internet looking at some point, okay? Maybe they're just looking blindly, or maybe they've gotten a few names from other people who said, try this one, and now they're trying to compare 2 or 3 different lawyers. They're going to go to the internet and look these guys up, okay? Mm-hmm. I just did that. I hired a lawyer up in New York on a real estate matter. I didn't know anybody up there. I got a couple of names from my real estate agent, and I looked them up, and one of them had a killer website with a lot of cool information, and the other 2 barely had a listing. Well, who did I call? I called the one with the killer website, of course.
Right, right.
So regardless of whether they find you originally from on the internet or whether somebody drops your name and then they want to further check you out, because that's what people do, you know, a strong internet presence is by far the number one thing. Second thing, and I found it's referrals from other lawyers. You know, all lawyers have their own herd of people, their own tribe, but they can't serve their whole herd. Most lawyers, for good reason, specialize, which means they can't handle everything that comes their way. So if you can create your tribe of lawyers, and I've created a tribe of about 4,500 lawyers on my list, and I market to that list constantly. So doing that, I have a steady flow of referrals from lawyers. They come in every damn day. And lawyers make great referral sources. So that's number 2. You know, the third one is your client base. And I would actually throw in your personal contacts into that list. So I'm going to call it your client base, your friends and family list, your church list, just any individual that you know. We have a separate marketing program for those people. what I call individual-based marketing versus attorney marketing. I know some lawyers who have a success in marketing to other professionals, medical professionals, therapists, chiros, doctors. I don't in my practice, but I know other lawyers do. That might be another list out there to hit. But those are the three that I see across the board, across all the people I coach. It's digital marketing, however you want to term that, marketing to other lawyers, marketing to your individual and client database. Those are the three things that consistently always work. And all of those take time to do.
I agree.
Starts overnight. It takes time.
I got to tell you, the list you put down is perfect because it applies to everybody, whether you're doing 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures. I know 9-figure players that still do referral-based lunches because it's important for them, right? If they're in the mass tort space, they want to lock down a referral source who's going to then be advertising for mass tort cases. Touching on about the frustration of it, you can either spend time or you could spend money, you could spend both. But interestingly enough, I know you do a lot of referral marketing to lawyers, and that's a big thing. How much are you doing on LinkedIn with that?
I have recently hired a social media marketing person in my office who handles just my social media, which includes LinkedIn. So I would say traditionally we have not done much with that at all. It's starting to change with adding that new person within my office, but traditionally I have not. I'm not a big social media person. Individually, I wouldn't know a tweet if it hit me in the ass. But it's not that I don't have a social media presence. I just have other people that assist me with it. But it was funny. My college-age daughter called me the other day like, Dad, you have 12,000 Twitter followers. And I'm like,
wow.
What's a Twitter? I didn't know. So yes, I think social media is helpful, but when you become my age and you're just totally not interested in it, it's good to hire somebody to help you with that. And LinkedIn is part of that. What I have done is I've just been really good about collecting names my entire career, and quite frankly, in stealing lists of things. I was president of the Houston Trial Lawyers Association. We had 800 members. Well, I had access to the list. So now that list is on my list. I'm on the board of directors of Texas Trial Lawyers. Well, guess what? That list is now on my list. I'm in AAJ. I'm in Atticus. So I have all of these lists. But these aren't random lists. It's not like I went out and bought a list. These are lists where I have some affiliation. I have some association with these.
Right.
Every defense attorney that I've ever had a case with is on my list because I've always been nice. I've always been trying to be polite to everybody I meet. Apparently, all the local judges are on my list because I get referrals from judges.
Right.
I've built the list over time, but then you have to do something with that list. You have to market to that list. And we put a lot of effort into that to stay in front of the list.
Did you ever do anything in marketing where you would just like, oh, that was a stinker? Like I would tell people to avoid that at all costs.
Oh, God, so many things I've done. I've literally made every mistake in the book. Fortunately, every mistake I've ever made, it's always been with it in mind that if this totally fails, I'll still be fine. I don't ever bet the farm on anything. I just test a lot of things. I've tested different types of internet schemes. I've tested different types of TV schemes, infomercial schemes, pay-per lead. God, here's the one I did. I spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 or $60,000 doing an email marketing campaign to doctors that was sold to me by a marketing company. And I literally got one lead out of the whole campaign, and it was a dud. So basically, I spent $50,000 a lead, an infinite amount for money per signed case.
Oh, that's painful.
But you know what, Mark?
50 G's down the toilet. But you know what? 50 G's is not that big of a deal. It was a test. I didn't spend 5 million. I spent 50 G's. So.
But the magic in what you said is that you're willing to make mistakes, right? I think that anybody that is doing what we're doing, me, you, and, talking about our circle of guys like Craig, Herb, we're always willing to be able to try something, understanding that there's going to be a failure rate. You're going to make mistakes. And I do think that willingness to make mistakes is what propels us ahead of people who are like so white knuckle gripping on the fear aspect of, do I do this? Do I try this new marketing thing? Or do I delegate, right? Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.